My name is Emily, and I've turned 33 this year. I became a childcare worker after leaving junior college at 20, and I'm still working in the same field. Taking care of nursery school children can be tough, but over time I've come to find it rewarding. In recent years, I've finally started to take pride in my work. On the personal front, I got married to Dylan, a high school classmate 8 years ago when I was 25. Dylan comes from a family of 5 siblings. He's got an older brother, Philip, an older sister, Valeria, a younger sister, Sandra, and a younger brother, Alex. Dylan and I were very close friends back in high school. However, we were just good friends at the time, nothing more. We didn't date in school, but we kept in touch and encouraged each other even after graduation. Over time, our feelings deepened, and we naturally started dating. 3 years into our relationship, Dylan finally proposed. I said yes without hesitation, and we got married 6 months later. Now let's get to the harrowing experience I had with my in-laws. Ever since I got married, I've been on the receiving end of constant harassment from my mother-in-law Rosa and the rest of the family. We don't live with them, we have our own place. Still, for some reason, they'd frequently come over to our home. I don't know what their issue is with me, but they've been incessantly bullying me. The bullying from Rosa and the in-laws has been quite severe. One time, Rosa and Valeria shoved me into the street while I was waiting at a crosswalk. Luckily, I wasn't hit by a car, but it was a close call. Another time, Sandra pretended to pour me hot coffee and spilled it on my arm instead. I still have the burn scar. Once, I even found a thumbtack embedded in the sole of my shoe. I should have gone to the police with these incidents. But I held back, fearing it might strain my relationship with Dylan. Looking back, I think that only emboldened Rosa and the others. The bullying has, unfortunately, continued unabated since then. Frustrated, I confronted Dylan. Tearfully, he said, "I'm really sorry. I don't know how to make it right." But in the next moment, he added, "My family doesn't mean any harm. They're not even aware they're bullying you. Maybe you're just unlucky." Fed up, I decided to install cameras around the house to capture Rosa and her crew's actions. The footage clearly showed Sandra accidentally spilling coffee on my clothes, Alex tripping me on purpose, and Valeria hitting my shoulder as she passed by. I showed this irrefutable evidence to Dylan. Yet his reaction was, "This doesn't look intentional. Are you sure this is bullying?" Yes, Dylan is ultimately on Rosa's side. Even with the evidence, he won't support me. At that moment, my love for Dylan started to fade. I feel like I don't have a single ally in this house anymore. If that's the case, there's no reason for me to stay with this family any longer. So, I decided to divorce Dylan. I quickly gathered evidence for legal actions. I collected video footage of their violent actions, audio recordings of verbal abuse, photos of my injuries, and medical certificates. I used this evidence to press criminal charges and file a civil lawsuit against Rosa and her family. Just then, Rosa collapsed. Her children blamed me, saying, "You stressed Mom out. Take responsibility." They added, You'll be doing all the caregiving." Dylan, agreeing with them, brought Rosa home without consulting me. I told Dylan, "I'm not doing anything for Rosa, and I have no reason to. You're the one who took her in, so you should be the one taking care of her. Even if you don't, I will never do anything for Rosa." With that, I declared that I was completely stepping away from caregiving. And of course, I kept true to my word. I never once did anything for Rosa. I didn't assist with meals or bathing, and I didn't even change her adult diapers. Naturally, all the caregiving tasks for Rosa fell on Dylan. I went about my daily life, going to work as usual, adjusting only my work hours. On the other hand, after I went to work, Dylan would take care of Rosa, helping her change, eat, and swapping out her adult diapers before heading to his job. I would finish work in the evening, come home, make dinner, and after eating alone, enjoy my free time until bed. In contrast, when Dylan got home from work at night, he would feed Rosa, change her adult diapers, and help her with bathing. Living this way day in and day out, Dylan became more and more run down, likely from exhaustion. It got to the point where it was truly heartbreaking to watch him. Sure, there were times when I got an earful. "Emily, you're part of this family too. Why don't you help out with Mom? Don't you have any sense of responsibility?" But the truth is, Rosa has never treated me as part of the family. I was always treated as a nuisance and relentlessly bullied. Why should I have to take care of Rosa under these circumstances? It's wrong for them to treat me as family only when it's convenient for them. I got yelled at by the in-laws too, but I completely ignored them. In Dylan and the in-laws' eyes, I probably seemed heartless. Before long, I started getting heat from my in-laws. "You know the family is going through a hard time, and you're not lifting a finger. Where's your compassion? You should be helping out a bit." Sure, if I were neglecting to care for Rosa just because we're not blood related, then their criticism would be valid. But that's not why I'm staying out of it. It's not because I find it too much trouble either. This isn't neglect. It's my ultimate revenge for years of bullying, and sometimes even physical abuse, from Rosa and my in-laws. My animosity towards them, including Rosa, has grown so intense that I can't imagine ending this chapter of my life without accomplishing this revenge. Let's backtrack to when I filed criminal charges against them. They were adamant that the charges were baseless and fought tooth and nail. However, the evidence I submitted to the police spoke for itself, solidifying my position. The realization must have hit them that they could actually get arrested. In a panic, my in-laws resorted to drastic measures. Believe it or not, they locked me in their home and spent hours pressuring me to drop the charges. It was the most terrifying moment of my life. They didn't brandish any weapons, but I was overwhelmed by the fear that they'd keep me locked up indefinitely. Somehow finding an opening, I escaped and immediately sought help from a neighbor, who then called the police. My in-laws were swiftly arrested and interrogated at the police station. The police told me they planned to go easy on them, saying it's a family matter. Only Valeria, the ringleader, was likely to face serious consequences. As for Rosa's violent acts towards me, they said they would conduct an investigation at home, and that it would likely also be dismissed. But as it turned out, This incident started a domino effect, unraveling the lives of Dylan and my in-laws. Sandra, who was engaged, ended up having her engagement broken off. Her fiance was from a well-off family, and they hired a detective agency to investigate Sandra. Once they found out about the criminal charges, they called off the engagement. Sandra bitterly blamed me, but the truth would have come out sooner or later. If the other party was as cautious as they were, I think divorce was inevitable at some point. The guy involved, to be honest, was quite good looking. Too good for Sandra, in my opinion. It's better for him to find someone more appealing, so breaking off this engagement was a good thing. I don't think it's fair to blame me for the broken engagement. Alex is job hunting now, having lost his job. Originally, Alex was set to become a formal employee after working part-time for around 7 years at his company. However, that job offer was rescinded because of this situation. Given that Alex worked at a small, family-run business, I think they considered one employee's bad history as potentially damaging to the company. To begin with, he's been living off part-time jobs for 7 years. So it would be tough to get hired by a reputable company now. Maybe Alex realized the gravity of his actions just as he was about to step into full-time employment. Rosa, the only one in the in-law group to be prosecuted and sentenced to imprisonment, was naturally served with divorce papers by her husband. The fact that she got a sentence without probation, even as a first offender, probably means the presiding judge saw a risk of reoffending. I testified in court as a victim and didn't see any signs of her showing remorse. Her motive was purely selfish. She didn't want to get caught. Someone that morally deficient should be behind bars. Valeria, for instance, had a 4th grader, and her ex-husband got custody. She wanted to visit but was turned down, even by the child. What kid would want a mother who extorts people? Despite being just an elementary school student, I was impressed by how smart the child seemed. In the end, all that was left for Valeria were my compensation claims and substantial child support payments. As for my husband Dylan, I filed for divorce through my lawyer after this ordeal. Dylan didn't want to divorce, but with the police involved, he couldn't stop me. After some discussions with our lawyers, we finally got divorced. Dylan eventually broke down from the stress of balancing work and taking care of Rosa, and ended up in and out of the hospital for a while. His health never improved, and he had to quit his job and undergo long-term treatment. On the other hand, all the compensation I saw from Dylan, Rosa, Sandra, and Alex was granted. As a result, all assets, including the house co-owned with Dylan, became mine. While it may look like I'm the only winner here, I think it's a natural outcome given all the evidence. By the way, I've stayed in touch with Dylan since our divorce, keeping up with his life. It seems Dylan and his family are really struggling these days. Apparently, he used his retirement funds and his father's inheritance to pay me the settlement. Right now, Dylan appears to be taking care of Rosa at his parents' home, and I've heard it's quite the ordeal. Even though he's retired, he can't afford to have no income, so it seems he's working part-time jobs a few times a week. Life must be really tough for him, getting worn out at his part-time job and then having to care for Rosa when he gets home. Rosa is physically limited, but mentally sharp, maintaining her cognitive abilities. This, as it turns out, is the most difficult caregiving scenario. Her clear mind means she complains and argues with Dylan, and their parent-child fights are apparently constant. The person who she used to bully and squander money, that's me, is no longer in the picture. It must be incredibly hard for both Rosa and Dylan. I can't even imagine if this was my everyday life. Regardless of being mother and son, I think Dylan will reach his limit at some point. But there's nothing I can do now. I can only hope they manage somehow. As for Philip, the only one in Dylan's family who never physically or verbally abused me, he seems to be separated from his wife right now. Apparently, they disagreed over caring for Rosa, and their discussions are at an impasse. They haven't divorced yet, so I hope they can bridge the gap somehow. Although I feel a bit sorry for Philip. As someone who has suffered years of terrible bullying, I see this as poetic justice. I believe Dylan and his family are simply facing the consequences of their actions.